once more. Soon your boat will come ashore.
And then very quickly to close your eyes and bring your awareness within. To try to feel for any change in those 30 seconds of singing that might have happened inside. Is there more energy? Is there more spark, vibration? We're going to sing it again, this time in a round. So we're going to have the first half. The first part is going to be everybody in this little quadrant here. The second half is going to be us in this front corner. Then this third group will be here, and the fourth group will be back there. And once again, we'll stop and then try to feel for that, any change within, any presence. Don't try to define it, don't try to expect anything. And again, we'll return to this later in the service. Here we go. You can start. 2, 3.
Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat is come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Strength your boat, lift your heart in strength once more. Strength your boat, strength your boat, strength once more. Strength once more. Strength your boat, strength your boat, strength your boat, come ashore.
And again, close your eyes and feel within for any change.
Good morning. This reading is taken from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Week 45. Faith is a call to prayer. Prayer is a call to faith. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapters 7 and 21, we read, "Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Verily I say unto you, if you have faith, and doubt not, if ye shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. And all things, whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." Paramhansa Yogananda showed by his own example that prayer is a power, provided we believe deeply in that power. When our thoughts and feelings are strongly focused, and then united in growing awareness to the divine presence within, they can bring even seemingly unrealistic wishes to fulfillment. When Paramhansa Yogananda was in charge of his school in Ranchi, India, he took the boys on occasional outings to the surrounding countryside. "There was a waterfall not far away," he told Swami Kriyananda, "where I took them sometimes. It was dangerous to cross there, but I would cry out to the boys, 'Do you believe in God?' 'Yes,' they would shout back enthusiastically, and so we always crossed in safety." Years later, after I'd gone to America, one of the teachers tried to do the same thing, but he lacked spiritual power. One of the boys slipped on a rock and was drowned. Thus the master explained, belief alone is not enough. It must be united to one pointed awareness, which leads to self-realization. The Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter underscores the necessity for such one-pointed concentration. Whenever the mind, fickle and restless, wanders off from its concentration, let the meditating yogi withdraw it resolutely, spurning every distraction, no matter how alluring, and bring it back again and again under the control of the self. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Everyone, welcome. How is everybody? How is everybody? Yes. We have a privilege today to have sharing with us David Eby. He's a part of our ministry team. He has taken on a particular challenge on behalf of truth, on behalf of God, on behalf of light, and that is to use the gift of music that he's been given to help change consciousness with everybody whom he meets. Weekly, he holds the choir together. He serves throughout the Portland area, the Pacific Northwest, playing cello and teaching and helping people. One of the secrets, one of the gifts that he so powerfully works with is the knowledge and the understanding that music goes right past the rational mind. All the filters, all the doubts, all the discrimination and discernment and self-protectiveness of the rational mind. Music slides right past that and gets into the heart and into the soul and wakes us up. And he's been helping people and continues. Like I said, he's part of our ministry team, and he'll be sharing with us now a little bit about the topics for today. So, David, if you would be. There's the mic if you want to pull it over.
So my father's a Presbyterian pastor, so I should be good at this. We'll see. It was fun growing up. People would often ask me, David, will you be a pastor when you grow up? And I would look at him and be like, are you crazy? Why would I want to do that? Well, today's topic is such a fascinating one, faith and prayer. And the musical path is filled with faith. Because how many of you have taken a leap of faith that didn't quite work out? It's like, oh yeah, I'll be ready for this performance. Yeah, I have faith in myself. And then you get up there, it's like, oh, maybe I should have practiced a little bit more. And so the education of music, the education of ourselves, of our spiritual life as well, is based on the development of faith, is the belief that, oh, I can do this. And so you start with really small steps, and then you say, oh, well, I got it. I got that, so I can then move to the next step as we go. And so sometimes our life is full of just little tiny incremental steps that build us up. And then sometimes life comes along and smacks us with an unforeseen circumstance, and we're faced with, what do we do? And it's in those moments that we have to go within and use our practice to say, what do I really believe in? What do I really have faith in? And it's fascinating, the difference between belief and faith. Yogananda describes belief as merely a mental process of how you can believe that something is going to be true, but it's the experience in the hidden realities that gives you faith in them. It's the experience in those inner realities. So for instance, when we sang Lift Your Heart in Strength Once More, how many of you were able to feel just the tiniest bit of change, whether it was energetic or feeling? Anybody? Okay, good. So, and we'll talk about openness as well, so it's fascinating how these two go together. I had no idea that music could be so impactful on consciousness until one day I was driving home from a miserable rehearsal, and I realized I had just joined Ananda. I had realized that I had to sing a solo in the upcoming concert, and I went from my miserable state and I said, okay, I should practice this song. So I sang this song, and it changed my consciousness like that, more dramatically than I had ever experienced music in my entire career. I started playing cello when I was 6, so that's a long time. And I discovered in that moment the power of music to, once again, as Jiva said, to transform, to go beyond the mental faculties of like, well, this melody should inspire hope and courage, but it was able to convey energy and to convey, and to change my energy, my vibration. I felt this dynamic center of energy right here at the spiritual eye. This was just months after I had started to learn to meditate. So I started to learn about what music does and what vibration does. And one of the things that I love to talk about is sympathetic vibration. And sympathetic vibration is one of these things that is the proof of things unseen. Yogananda quotes St. Paul as, faith is the proof of things unseen. So I'm going to show you on this cello the faith of things unseen. Sympathetic vibration is when a string, in this case a string, will start to vibrate when its note is played at a different place. And you can say it's a different place because my bow is playing on this lowest note, but it's playing a note that will resonate this note and this note as well. So I don't know if you can see from there, but you're looking at these two strings here. My bow, again, is only touching this one string down here. And I don't know if you can hear it and see it. And so I love teaching the little kids. I said, the cello angels are playing with you. Because there's no other way to describe how this is happening. Because, of course, my physics friends like to say, well, it's the sound pressure waves and this and that. But really, it's about attunement. It's faith and attunement. So if I'm slightly out of tune with that, it will just be like, it's not quite there. It's only when it's perfectly in tune that the laws of this will start to work. And so faith is built on the law of belief, the law of that powerful concentration. And yet it's kind of frustrating in this. Jesus says, if you have faith, that you can move a mountain into the sea, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of that happening, except for landslides, and nobody seems to say, oh, sorry, that was me. But yet we have to accept that the faith is there. So many people talk about men of faith, but we are all people of faith to some sort or another. We have faith that the sun is going to rise in the east. It's not that we just believe it, we have faith that it will happen. And we have faith that as we're growing up, that our parents will take care of us and that we will be given what we need at the time we need it. And so when we have faith, we are putting into practice that little bit of belief, that little bit of power, and that little bit of energy. So for instance, I have faith that I can play from this note up into the higher octave. So go from this note to make it sound like that through this shift. Now, 20 years ago, I would not have had faith that I could stand up, standing with my cello in front of a whole bunch of people with the ability to just go and do that shift there. Because when you're playing, you're doing a lot of muscle memory. So you develop a lot of faith in your muscles to learn. But shifting is a whole different matter, because it's moving the arm and knowing exactly the arc of that, and knowing it's not like, oh, I know when to put on the brakes, but knowing that general thing and hearing in your head that note and having the faith that will get there. As a kid growing up, I was like, how do the people do that with that sense of power and sense of confidence in that? And I was just amazed at how people could have faith in their own playing to that degree, because I did not have it. It wasn't until I started to meditate, and so that my body started to cooperate with what I had in mind. And so I could start to relax and then to appreciate what was going on. In this case, it was an outer thing, but to also appreciate what was going on in an inner path as well. So it was about this time when I started to meditate that my wife and I were living in southern Indiana, and we suddenly realized, what are we waiting for? We don't want to live in this particular region and state of consciousness because it's very flat in Indiana, and the consciousness is rather flat in southern Indiana where we lived. And we were kind of radicals, they called us. You know, me, a radical? Well, you know my wife, so maybe that wasn't so hard. But we were looking for a place that we could to start exploring our lives in a deeper, more meaningful way. So we just started to choose some cities, and lo and behold, Madhavi was asked to come and take a job here in Portland. So here was our first leap of faith. And we had no prior experience to this, but we said, okay, let's do it. And of course, my mother was not so happy about that. So you don't want me to come visit you anymore. But we had to take that leap of faith that things were going to be okay. And we had found Ananda, and I told her when she was the first one to come out, look for Ananda or Self-Realization Fellowship, because we had just started to read Autobiography of a Yogi. And she happened to drive right by on Watson going to the farmer's market and say, hey, there's that place. So we came, and we knew we were home. We opened the door, and we saw some of you sitting here today that very first day. And we returned again week after week because something inside was giving us that little experience that said, this is what you've been looking for. It wasn't just this, well, I think I'm shopping for a new belief or a new faith. You know, I grew up Presbyterian, and I asked my dad once, why can't I be Jewish? Why can't I just say, Dad, I want to be Jewish, and try that out for a while? I don't remember his answer, but it wasn't something memorable. And so, by the way, they are very supportive of. They've seen again that inner experience that we've had, and they've experienced that for us through us as we've visited them, and they know that we're doing something that's helping the planet and helping ourselves. So then, a few years later, we took a leap of faith and moved down to the village, and there we lived for 12 years. We didn't have any jobs when we made the decision. We just said, okay, let's do it. It seems like now is the time. We're feeling guided in that direction. And so we've learned along the way when it's important to be open, again, the sense of openness and the sense of receptivity to inner guidance, and when it is important to use that discrimination. So for those of you who didn't quite feel anything, don't, as we sang, don't feel bad. Again, if I were to play that note, but to dampen this string, they're not going to vibrate. So our audiences as performers are not the good ones that look at like this. In fact, when you're playing, you can feel the energy of the audience, how receptive they are. And it's been such a blessing for the past 20 years to perform for Ananda audiences, to have that sense of openness cultivated so that we can go out into other circumstances and play for people who may not be as open, but to share as vulnerably, knowing that we've had this practice and everything is going to be okay. So I rarely get that stage fright anymore that I used to get. And so bringing that back to a sense of openness, don't give up. Just keep developing your receptivity. And so what we learned was that we had to be open, and boy, did I learn that the hard way. I was first on the path, and everything was just wide open. God, love, faith, oh, life is great. And then I got swindled. And my wife, the discriminating factor, was already out here in Portland. And I was just living life from a place of love and a place of openness. But I got taken by this woman who came in and gave me her sad story, and of course I believed her, and things went on, and a couple $100 later, I realized, oh, well, that's what this has been all about. Thank you. I'm moving to Oregon to start a new way of discrimination. And so in our path then to move up to here 5 years ago, we felt deeply that it was time to move. And the first year was really, really tough. And so again and again was like, was this the right decision to do? But time has proved that when you follow your experience, no matter how small it might be, and you follow that sense of deepening joy wherever it may lead, you want to build on those small experiences, and that's why the practice of faith is so important. Practicing with the small things, doing something new every day that you may not have done before, to give yourself that experience, that confidence in being able to follow your faith, to follow where that joy is leading you, because who knows where it is leading you. There are many circumstances that we need to have faith. We need to have that moving forward in the power of belief that everything will turn out okay. And if it's not okay, then the story isn't over yet. So Laurelwood needs your prayers. Laurelwood needs your support. And this community, this temple, the Ananda School, we are all in these places of uncertainty, but yet we feel called to continue to move forward and to put one foot in front of the other, even though we don't know where this is all going to end. And you can think about this lifetime. How is this lifetime going to end? And I love how it's described as a good movie. We don't know how it's going to end, but the movies I watch, at least, always have that sense of closure, that sense of a life well lived, of following that, of practicing. So faith is of two things. It's of practicing those tiny little things, but it's also that energy. It's vibration. Faith is contagious. It's community. And when I took my daughter, who was 3, with Balarama Betts, he used to live here and manage the community, to Yosemite with his 3rd and 4th grade class, he's able to bring kids in this incredible rock climbing experience, which can be dangerous, but yet he wraps his aura and he wraps his experience and his belief around these young children and gets them to do amazing things. I like to do things in a much less dangerous situation in music. I have a class of 40 4th grade cellists, which takes a certain amount of insanity and faith that you can get them to sound good. But he was able to, again, wrap his energy and his aura around them to believe that they can do it. And just like Yogananda was able to do with his students and the waterfall. So living in community gives us this amazing opportunity to see other people living in faith, not living in blind belief, not living in assumptions, but practicing that faith, practicing that little step every single day. And it's so fascinating how the Bhagavad Gita reading doesn't talk about just this blind belief. It talks about focus. It talks about concentration. Again, bringing it back to that inner experience. And what I love about this path is that it is a path of joy. It is a path of inner experience. There's a lot of meditation movements out there that talk about watching the thoughts. It's like, oh, that's not very fun. But the path of joy gives us that dynamic inner experience. And when that comes, meditation is effortless. And we know that our prayers are being answered. So some of you may hear Om, some of you may have visions and see the inner light. For me, it's that presence of joy. It's that sense of vibration that comes especially through music that gives me the faith to keep going day after day, meditation after meditation, whether it's a successful one or not, whether a choir rehearsal is successful. Well, they usually are. We always leave uplifted. But it's interesting, like what challenges do come up. It's never a sure bet as everything, as it may seem to be. We all have our challenges in even this music. But I know that as long as I stay attuned to that joy, as long as I can keep bringing my mind, fickle as it is, back to that concentration, I know that everything will be okay. So I'll invite you to now join with me in the vibration of this Whispers from Eternity. Father, swimming in the sea of my craving for thee, I find myself beaten by the winds of severe trials, floating on cresting waves of pleasure and pain, then sinking down into the depths of indifference. I still keep longing, looking for thy shoreless shore. With every stroke of my powerful prayer, I move nearer to thee. Never shall I give up. Thou thyself, I know, dost look for my coming.
Thank you very much, David. It was beautiful. I'm touched and not at all surprised that it ended up having the cello as a feature of the talk. It is such a gift that you bring. I'm just going to pick it up right where he stopped talking. Basically, you know what? Each one of us is desperately hungry for the wholeness that is the fruit of God contact, that is the fruit of living in the presence of God, awake from inside. We're desperate for it. The whole world is desperate for it, and we keep looking for love in all the wrong places, keep doing things that cause disharmony instead of harmony. And the path, all of yoga, these teachings, these masters came at this time because they knew of the kind of discord and disharmony that was going to be happening, and to give mankind and each one of us access to the harmony we seek, to the wholeness we seek, to the joy and the love that we seek. And it doesn't come within the container that we're accustomed to. The things that we're familiar with are the things that it's the ocean we're swimming in. It's all the things that are going on. And so we have to, openness goes with this, we have to be willing to open ourselves to a different experience if we want something different to happen. I want to read from a little essay from Nayaswami's Jyotishan Devi from this last week. It's speaking to an experience that Swami Kriyananda had, but which is an invitation. The masters come and they invite us to something different. They invite us to something different. So this is Swami Kriyananda's first experience of what might be implied in trying to fulfill that longing that we have inside. Master wants you to lecture in his place at San Diego Temple this weekend. He also wants you to give Kriya Yoga initiation afterwards. These words were delivered to Swami Kriyananda after he had been with his guru Yogananda for only a few months. Kriyananda's reaction was both disbelief and shock, but he sputtered to the monk, conveying the guru's instructions. Everyone there is expecting Master to give the lecture after his absence of over 3 months. Besides, I'm only 22. I've never spoken in public, and I've only been to one Kriya initiation myself. Well, the brother monk replied, he wants you to go. Here's some money for the bus. You'd better leave immediately. The terrified young Walter did take the next bus and was an inspiring representative for his guru that day. And thus began Swami Kriyananda's life as a spiritual teacher, one that spanned the next 65 years and brought Yogananda's teachings to millions around the world. Beyond its significance in Swami's own life and ergo ours, because by extension Ananda was founded, this incident also contains a lesson for all of us. Kriyananda did what was asked of him, even though his guru's request seemed far beyond his level of experience or self-definition at the time. By doing it, he transcended the contractive ego that draws a line in the sand and says, this is who I am and this is what I can do. A better attitude for a devotee is to hold his, I'm not going to limit who I am or what I am capable of. This leaves room for the spiritual growth we all seek. We're in a time where there's a desperate need for spiritual warriors. We're in a time when there's a desperate need for people to step out of the comfort zone. We're building a house for the community out in Laurelwood, and I'm helping with that process, and I have to shop for items for the home. And I was shopping with a company, and they weren't responding. And I finally sent an email. It was a little bit of a nastygram, just a little, where the heck are you? This is time sensitive. And I got an email, an auto response saying, our offices are closed right now because the campfire fire has caused us to have to evacuate. That fire came out of nowhere. And it swept through and took out. It's the biggest fire that's ever been in California history. It's over 100,000 acres. It's 6,500 homes. It's mayhem. And we're seeing this increasingly around the world. We're seeing this, and it's coming soon to a theater near you. It's coming to us. And the choice is, if we just stay asleep, we become victims. The things that Ananda has inaugurated in the world and in the Portland area, they're not because we've got nothing else to do. They are the response to the consciousness that's causing these problems. And the invitation of the masters, the invitation of the masters who came in response to our yearning for wholeness, the invitation is for us to step in and do something different. If we want to have a different experience inside, if we want to have a different experience in the world, we have to change the story, and we have to have the courage to step into it. We have to be willing to have the focus that allows us to be victorious. And we have to have the faith that God is behind our highest aspirations for personal wholeness and for wholeness for this planet. If not you, who? If not now, when? It's the call of this week, it's the call of this world, it's the call of this topic, and it's the response to the call of our own hearts. Let's take a moment of silence, please.
Keep calm. tears. The altar of my soul will be empty till thou comest. I'll wait for thee, no matter days or years. Keep calling him, keep calling him. Whether he replies or not, keep calling him. In the center of my heart I have a mystic throne for thee. The candles of my joys are dimly burning now in hope, awaiting thy coming. Though it be eternity, keep calling him, keep calling him. Whether he replies or not, keep calling him. Even